Are you guys comfortable with me just sitting here? Because this is a pretty intimate group. So if you can't hear me, just let me know. My name is Mick Byers, for those of you that don't know. I've been a nurse, LPN, for about 26 years, all of it with geriatric dementia, and for 10 years I was the manager of a dementia community. So what I lack in formal training, I've learned along the road and picked up things on my own. So over the years, it's been a evolution. When I first started out in the nursing home, the way they handle behavioral symptoms at that point was, let's say someone goes into another person's room, the other person screams, get him out of here. So rather than working with that, we just go in like a bunch of bouncers, pull them out of the room. Their anxiety goes through the roof. They start getting agitated, and we end up giving them IM Ativan, which knocks them out for 12 hours. And then you go through the cycle for a few weeks until they finally just give up. And that was the cycle back then. Thank God we've come a long way since then and have learned what person-centered care is and have been able to work with these folks. And what I do in this hour is try to put us in their shoes and try to see what their losses are. And you guys can shout out questions anywhere along the line. So if I get on the subject and you go, hey, what's about this? Feel free. And I always start out these workshops with this image. I want you to think about the hardest person that you've ever had to deal with and their hardest moment. In other words, the most intense behavior that you can think of with the most intense person. Think about that for a moment. And I want you to realize this is not their fault. And I say this over like a mantra at work. This is not their fault. They are not giving you a hard time. They are having a hard time. And we have to find a way to help them through that. Okay? So I'm going to give you a little scenario. You had a bad day. The power went out last night after the battery in your cell phone died. You woke up late because there was no alarm. You have no water, so no shower. You have no coffee. On the ride to work, there's construction slowing traffic down, and you become late for work. Once you get to work, you find out there were 2 call-outs, which means you have to do a lot of catching up in the work. The boss calls you into her office for being late without letting her know. You also find out that the position you thought you'd get was given to someone else. So what kind of emotions are you feeling right now? Just go ahead and shout them out. Angry. Frustrated.
Disappointed.
Maybe embarrassed. Now, imagine if you had no filter and you were feeling those emotions. What are some of the things that you would experience? Yelling. Cursing.
Road rage.
Yep. Maybe swinging a fist at somebody or bitch slapping somebody. You can see where I'm going with this. These folks have bad days too. And some of those are they wake up not knowing where they're at, not knowing who we are, not being hungry and being brought down to a breakfast table. I can go through all kinds of scenarios for you, but you understand that we have to understand what they're going through. So I'm going to go through a few things. We're going to start with vision, because vision, we take in about 80% of our information that we get comes through our vision. Seeing is believing, right? It takes longer for them to process what they are seeing. I had this fellow that I'd get up for breakfast every morning, and it would take me literally to go 10 yards, it would take me about 15 minutes, because he'd stand up, he'd look at a picture on the wall, and you could see the gears turning, and it'd take him a minute or two and go, okay, that's a picture of my wife. And then he'd take a few more steps and look again. And he'd do that all the way down the hallway until we get to the breakfast table. So it takes them a lot longer to process the things that they are seeing, more so than with us. It's also more difficult for them to see colors that are not really brightly contrasted. I had this brilliant idea when I was managing that dementia community that I'd get Corningware, because anytime they drop something, you know, it's smashed everywhere. With Corningware, you don't have to worry about that. The problem was I ordered all white. And if you can imagine, we'd get chicken and rice on that plate and maybe some peas, and the only thing they're eating is the peas. And we're thinking, wow, they're not that hungry. Well, the fact is, they can't see without that contrast. I also get irritated when I go into facilities and I see their bathrooms, which are white tiles, white walls, white toilet seat, white everything. And we try to take them into the bathroom and they wonder why they're getting so upset and why they are having such a problem with it. All they see is this big white cube, and as we talk, it reverberates all around them, so their confusion really goes through the roof. And they have no depth perception either. So as you're trying to get them to sit down on that toilet seat, in their mind, you're asking them to sit on the floor because they have no depth. And it's only when they have those handles where they go, okay, I'm safe now, and then they can lower themselves. But it's very scary for them. You have to realize when they allow you to lower them, they're putting their trust in you, because in their mind, they don't know what's behind them. So keep that in mind when you see them very frightened. A lot of them, too, have a history of falls. And so they have that fear of falling right alongside us telling them to sit down on something that they can't see. Very difficult. So you have difficulty processing, you have the difficulty with contrasting, you have the difficulty with depth perception, and then you have the peripheral vision. Even in normal aging, peripheral vision fades. When I was 18, and when I was playing sports, I could cover my guy and watch the ball all at the same time without any problem. But now at age 65, my peripheral vision is right here. And it's even worse when you have folks that have dementia, because their peripheral vision is just about gone. This is all they can see. And as the disease progresses, it gets smaller and smaller. We're going to do a little exercise. I'd like all of you to stand up and come out around here. Just in time.
Thank you.
Just make a kind of a half circle around here. And then put on those binocular visions, and this is what the folks with dementia have, okay? All right, just walk around a little bit with those binoculars. Go ahead and mingle.
Okay.
Okay. You can be seated. So what were some of the things that you were feeling and experiencing with that?
Well, you run into walls and anybody else.
Yep. Have you ever come up on a person to tap them on the shoulder and it freaks them out?
Yeah.
Duh. That's why they do not have that peripheral vision. Or how many times have you seen someone walking down the hallway, their face down like this? That's why, because they can't see wide ranges like all of us do. The same is true when we're feeding them or when we're giving them medications or anything. If we come from the side, they're gonna, So anytime I do, I always bring my hand way out here where they can see it and then just bring it in. Makes a big difference. So that's vision, and then there's language, and that's probably one of the most heartbreaking aspects of this disease. if you see it, if you've seen someone all the way through the process of this disease, it starts out with them just not remembering that word, that simple word that, and we've all had moments like this where something's on the tip of our tongue, but they live with it every day, where that word just, and you see the frustration, you see the embarrassment, because it's a simple word and it may even be their daughter's name, you know, it could be anything, and it just creates a heartache for them. It gets to the point where they start putting inappropriate words in there just so they can finish their thought with you. One morning when I was in the facility, there was one woman who every morning had eggs, toast, and bacon every morning, and she had salt and pepper on her eggs every morning. I walked by that morning and she handed her plate to me and said, "Mick, there's no Marco Polo on my eggs." And so I knew exactly what, we all knew exactly what she's talking about, and so I just handed it to the egg and said, "Put some salt and pepper on this Marco Polo on this eggs." And we just roll with it in each one of those scenes. You don't want to expose that to them because they're already very fragile. But that's how they start. They start fitting in words that are inappropriate, and then it gets worse and worse, as you all know, until it becomes word salad. And the important thing when it gets to that point is to continue conversations with them anyway. The sentences may be nonsensical, but you just keep that back and forth going, because if you don't, if you're telling them that they don't make any sense and you don't understand what they're saying, what ends up happening is they isolate, they shut down, they stop communicating. And you all know where it goes from there. I'm going to say 4 words to you, very important. As to understand words. As to understand words. As clients listen to us, they can understand about every 4 words. So keep that in mind. And it's not literally every 4 words, but they don't understand everything we're saying. So as we're talking to them, we want to make sure that we're getting our message across, and we want to keep the message simple as we're getting across to them. And this is all about seeing how vulnerable they are, whether it's with the vision, the language, or the other things that we're going on here. You got to understand that these are real people with real lives, and now all of a sudden things are getting stripped from them 1 inch at a time, including language. And so they're very cognizant that they're lost, there are losses, and they're going to do their best to pretend that they don't have those losses, but we need to be sensitive to that. Does that make sense to you guys? Mm-hmm. So once the language is gone completely, then we have to rely on their body language. And when we know them well enough, we know from their body language when they're pissed off, when they're sick, when they're happy to see us, when they're irritable. All of those things we can start to read with them. And it can even be a warning sign to us, you better back off, because hands are going to start slapping if you don't back off right now. So you got to pay attention to their body language. And be aware that they can read your body language as well. So if you go in to take care of somebody and you're in a rush, or you're irritated, or you're distracted, or any number of things, they're going to see that. They're going to read that. So what I tell the staff is when you walk into that door to take care of them and shut that door, time stands still. You don't think about the future. You don't think about what has been going on. You just think about that person in that moment is the most important person in your life right in that moment until all of their needs are met. So that they can read that when you're taking care of them, they can read that they are the most important person in your life in that moment. It's important. Along with the loss of vision and the loss of language, there's also the loss of body coordination and fine motor skills. The hand-eye coordination is a big one. I don't know how many of you have seen people scoop up a spoonful of something and put it in their cheek or their chin because they're just not, they lost that coordination. Safety awareness is compromised as well. We've all heard those horror stories of folks that have gone out in the middle of winter in their nightgown with no shoes on. And we can create all kind of scenarios of where they put themselves in danger because they no longer have that safety awareness. Another big one is they no longer can multitask. You have to break everything down into small segments. You can't just say to someone, Mr. Smith, we're going to go in the bathroom, we're going to get it all washed up. That will mean nothing to them. You go for a walk with them, you find the bathroom, go into the bathroom, you tell them, let's do this, and then you just break it all down. It makes it very less frustrating for all of them. Along with that, and the most important thing for staff to remember is they have no fine motor skills. They still have the strength, but like the ability to button or zip or do all of those things with the fingers, it gets lost. Now we're going to have some more fun. I'm going to have you two, because you're right up front. Do this one. Don't stay right where you are.
Okay.
And this is a very crude way of all of us understanding what's
So
going on.
I've already done this, somebody else is
Okay.
actually wanting
Would
to.
you come right up here?
I used to
Since
teach
you
it.
said you don't want to volunteer.
Sure.
And you folks can come up closer if you want and watch the festivities here.
We called it a walk in their shoes.
Yes.
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
Okay, sorry.
Put the gloves on. And then put the glasses on. And your job is to unwrap the candies, pick up the dime, put it in the baggie, and then seal it, and then put the paper clip over it.
I have to unwrap the candy, you said?
Unwrap the candy, pick up the dime, put it all in the baggie, and then seal it with the paper clip.
I think,
Yeah.
And eat it.
Okay.
Don't worry, no one's eating it, so.
right.
You can do what you want with it.
That took some thought to get that, Lexi.
By the way, the glasses are very dirty.
Yes.
Can't see out of them.
Oh, okay. Come on, Diane. Okay,
Wow.
that was hard.
And then seal it, and put the paper clip over
Okay,
it.
seal it and put
Great.
Well done.
well,
This is just snack time.
paper clip over it. Wow,
Demolished.
Okay, I think you both got the point.
Okay, there you go.
So again, what were your emotions as you're going through that?
okay. Well, I felt very foolish.
I wanted to just
Yeah.
throw in the towel and say, no, we're not going to do that.
Yep.
I feel like people have probably done
That's how we give kids our Halloween candy from now on.
Yeah.
So, the frustration and maybe embarrassment because you knew everyone was watching you as you're struggling with this, all makes a lot of sense to you guys?
Nick, could I ask a question
Yeah.
about the language? The language.
Yeah.
So when the conversation breaks down, right, when they're at the word salad
Yeah.
stage, right? Because I work with family caregivers
Mm-hmm.
predominantly, and this is one of the things that they really report a lot of frustration with is, my person's not making any sense. And so, having the conversations anyway, they're wondering,
You
what
can-
do I say? I don't know
You can
what they're
say
trying to tell me.
the meaning of and this
Right.
goes against the grain, I know, I understand that, but I've seen it create a freedom in families too when I tell them this.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what they say. The meaning, it doesn't have to have any meaning.
So they don't need to worry so much about interpreting what the person's trying to
Right.
say. Just say
Yeah.
something back.
Yeah,
I typically try to listen to the tone and
yes,
then find the emotion.
Yes.
Be in agreement with that.
yes,
Because I can't be in agreement with the fact that there's a purple bird in your bathroom. But if you're saying it in a way that sounds like you're scared, that's the emotion that you match, and you go, you sound afraid.
yeah, yeah.
What can I do?
And we're going to get into that further in this too, but that's very important.
It's really hard for families to do, though.
It
because
is.
They
Right,
take
'cause
their
it's
families
a
so
guessing-
literal
it's
for
part of it's a
65
guessing
years,
day.
yeah.
It's
What were you going to
guessing
say?
game.
So, very similar. I was gonna say, speak to the emotion, and I work in long-term care, and there's one woman who, at this point, is complete word salad, but she's very animated. And I find, and I think, I reflect her emotion, but I kind of mirror her.
Yeah,
And she really connects with that. And this is, just a little.
Yeah.
There's one gentleman who is kind of early middle stage, and he has a theater background. And he volunteers with me in a program for people with advanced dementia. And another woman, word salad, this man intuitively just completely mirrors this woman. And the conversations they have, word salad,
yeah,
but emotion
Yeah.
is just stunningly beautiful.
It
It's like
is.
the soul speak.
it is. And there is a rhythm to it too. I get a biggest kick out of having two word salad folks hanging out with each other, having deep conversations with one another, and not having a clue what the other one is saying. I mean, it's a beautiful moment, it really is.
Because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's the connection that matters.
Right, exactly. And that's what they need. They need to feel that validation that this is normal, this is okay. And like I said, if
Still
you-
talk to me. Yes.
Yeah.
And listen.
I matter.
yeah, and that's the downside of if you don't keep that going, they will isolate. They will feel like I don't matter anymore, so I'm just going to go off in my own little world. And that's where you see them sleeping more, not because they're tired, but because it's safer. Okay, so you have the vision, the language, the body coordination, the fine motor skills. Now I want to talk about what usually prompts us all to get involved. And it's what the hospital acronym is, BPSD, if you ever see that in documents. BPSD, that is behavioral and psychological symptoms of dementia. That's the hoarding, the wandering, the socially inappropriate, sexually inappropriate, combative. It's a big basket where they just lump all of that into. And that really is why many of us do what we do, because we see how that really destroys their life more than anything. All this other stuff, we could adjust. We really could. But when they cannot connect with this reality and it creates all those emotions, that's when we're needed. So I want to tell you the story of my friend Lewis from a few years ago. This where I worked was an assisted living, and it was a memory care unit there. There was about 20 people. And Lewis came on as a new admission, and he had early onset dementia, and it was diagnosed at 50, and he's now 60. His wife can no longer take care of him at home, so he came to us. And so he's surrounded by people that are in their 80s and 90s, and this guy is in top shape. He's not a physical thing wrong with him. And so we created a care plan where he could help us with chores. We got him involved in some activities where he was, even his family got involved, where he was kayaking, walking trails, all of this stuff. And it was working really well. But he had a long history of depression as well, and a depression that interfered with his activities, daily living. So one day, in particular, he pushed down this 90-year-old lady who wasn't even 100 pounds and stood over her with his fist clenched. Now, it was only a couple minutes, but it felt like an eternity. And we just couldn't have him there anymore. He wasn't safe. So we called the hospital because it was a psychological emergency. He went to the hospital, and to make a long story short, they gave him regular doses of Haldol for 4 days, and then brought him back to us and saying we didn't see any behaviors in the, yeah. Yeah, of course you didn't. And so after he came out of the sedation about a week later, he was right back to the depression sunk in again. And he ended up, in anger, putting one of the staff into a chokehold. Now, my friend was able to get loose from him, but again, we had to call the hospital again and made him clear that, until things change, he can't come back to us. And so that was really heartbreaking for me to read the nurses' and doctors' notes over the next couple of weeks because I saw things like we had to catheterize him every day. And I saw notes of he didn't understand how to catheterize himself. We were, and all these things that anyone with any kind of training in dementia would understand. You can't have those kind of expectations. And it wasn't just that, it was a multitude of things. He's in these bright lights, all these faces, and he was in restraints for the better part of that. Make a long story short, he ended up eventually just giving up and stopped eating and drinking. And it wasn't until that last week he went to the Jack Burns Center and lived out his last week in a beautiful passing with his family and friends around him. But he was my friend too. I mean, we got connected to these folks. And to see him go through that one, he absolutely did not have to do that. I loved what they said in the lecture this morning about having a team. I would love for the hospitals to have those kind of teams of that are aware, that know dementia and are aware and can come in and take care of them. That would be so awesome. But that was a heartbreaking moment for me. And that wasn't the only story I could tell you, and I'm sure you guys all have the same kind of stories of how behaviors led them down a dark path. So going over all of these things, all these losses, and where they end up, what is left for these folks? And one very important, beautiful thing that they still have, and will have till the day they die, is what I call an emotional imprint or emotional memory. They may not remember you, they may not remember the conversation you had with them, but they remember how you made them feel. They still experience joy, they still experience love, they still experience anger, loneliness, boredom, fear, jealousy, all of those things. That doesn't go away. That's still there with them. And we can use that because what we want to do is create a positive environment where that's what they feel is those positive emotions, the joy, the love, the peace, the contentment, and create that in that environment that they're living in. You do that and you're golden. Of course, there are challenges. Let me just say, give you these stories. Mr. Smith is waiting for his parents to pick him up. Mrs. Jones wants to call her dead husband. Mr. Johnson wants to wait for the bus outside. Mrs. White won't stay in her apartment. I don't live here. I want to go home. So this is something that families have a really hard time with, but it is very effective. And families have a hard time because they see it as lying. But what we want to do is enter into their reality. We had a fellow a few years ago, came up to an aide, well-meaning aide, and said, "I'm waiting for my parents to pick me up." And the aide said, "Well, Doug, you're 90 years old, so that would make your parents like 120 years old. So, you see, your parents are dead." And what do you think he heard?
Your parents were dead.
My parents are dead. And he grieved for 6 hours after that about his parents dying. If instead of trying to do a reality therapy with them, if we would just join them, and it's a part of that whole conversation, nonsensical conversation. I do it all day, every day with them, where I find out where their reality is. I join them in that, have a conversation about whether it's their husband, their mother. A good example is there was a woman who was exit seeking because she had to get back to her husband. And all I had to say was, "Didn't you and your husband own a farm together?" And that turned it around. She started talking about all the good memories that they had on the farm.
That's why robots won't work.
Exactly, exactly. Yes, we have both experienced that, yes, yeah. I tried not to be too critical, but.
Sorry, but yeah.
Yeah. You want to look at the injury? I'll show you the injury, but yeah, that's as far as it'll go. And same with Zoom, and God bless everyone for trying, but during COVID, they tried Zoom with my folks, and
No.
it didn't work, yeah.
I'm talking to your dog.
Yeah, yeah. So when they have these delusions, when they're off in this other reality, we need to find a way to get through there and build trust with them while we're talking to them about their reality, and then bring them back to a more positive place with you. And it's a cool, I'm going to brag about our environment. It is a peaceful, loving, there's very rarely do we see any kind of outburst because they're all living in that kind of calm.
Where are you?
Valley Terrace.
Oh, nice.
I'm going to do a little bit of bragging. When I first got there, none of the doctors wanted to talk to us, first of all. The families were not our partners, they were enemies. And this is before I started. And once I started, and once they gave me the go-ahead to create whatever program I wanted for them, the doctors started trusting us. The families felt like partners with us. And antipsychotic medication dropped 75% because they were living in a comfortable environment. And combative behavior was almost non-existent. It was a very rare occasion that it ever happened. And it's all because we all learned to connect with them. So in a nutshell, we understand what their body language is saying. We will recognize that they will remember everything that we do and say and how we are going to make them feel. We meet them in their reality, we find that connection, and then we redirect them to a more positive environment. Now, if we're honest, our goal with these folks is that we want to keep them safe, comfortable, and having fun. That's our goal with them. And that's our goal for all of us too, really. If we keep them safe, comfortable, and having a good time, we're doing good. There's 3 basic roadblocks to that, and we can combat each one of those with activity. First one is boredom. We don't think about them getting bored, but they get bored. So you need to, not everybody wants to play bingo. You need to find out what their interests are and build an activity around what their interests are. The other thing that they suffer with is loneliness, because God bless the staff, they go in to take care of all the needs, but they don't think about their emotional need. They also need to be their friend. And the last obstacle is they need to feel useful, because they feel bored, they feel lonely, and they feel useless. So those that are the type A need to have something to do. We let them help with chores. We need to let them help with whatever else needs to happen to make them feel like they're a part of the plan, part of the program. Some of them do dishes, some of them wipe down tables, some of them sweep, whatever they need to do to help them feel useful. And you wouldn't believe how it changes their countenance. There was one person in particular that she was just getting in everybody's face and just really irritating the other residents and irritating the staff. So I told the staff member, bring her a cleaning rag, and gave her the rag, and she went through the whole dining room cleaning up after everybody, and her whole countenance changed because she was feeling useless before that. All right, we're going to take a really quick 5-minute break for a bathroom break, and then we'll come back and finish up. Okay, I need 6 volunteers, which I will pick if you don't stand up.
So I have to go over there?
Nope, right over here.
Oh. That's 3.
4. Just need 2 more. Going once. You're 1. Oh, and then we got another one. Oh, we got 2? All right. Saved by the bell. Okay, we're going to talk about greetings and interacting with them. So I want to have 3 over here and then 3 over here, about 6 feet away from the other 3. Yeah, spread yourselves out a little bit so you can get some room. Okay, this is called public space. This is where, if you're going to introduce yourself to the dementia, those 3 have dementia, by the way. So you want to start out in the public space where they feel the freedom, they don't feel like they're being indulged on. And this is where you smile, wave, hey, how you doing? My name's Mick, blah, blah, blah. This is public. Now, moving closer to about 3 feet from each other. A little closer. This is private space. This is where you're going to have good conversations with them, but you're not going to necessarily do anything beyond good conversation. Okay?
Would you say this is about where you...
Yeah. And this is where you can read their body language pretty well too, where they can show you piss off, or they can show you, I'm glad you're here, kind of stuff. All right, now I want you to get within 1 foot of each other. Very close to each other. How does that feel?
Too close.
Yeah. This is where all the magic happens.
Right.
So you want to make sure that they trust you, and you want to make sure that you trust them when you're at this point. And this is what I tell staff too, is while you're being really, I'm going to step in here.
Yeah.
While you're being really close to them, you want to also in the back of your mind go, okay, if she swings at me, I'm going to bring this hand, just have it in your mind how you're going to defend yourself at the same time. But at the same time, you're always smiling, you're always talking calm. Does that all make sense to you?
Does it make sense if you need to be that close, maybe because of hearing, that sitting this distance might feel, oh, sorry, okay.
No,
go
that's
ahead.
Have a seat.
Okay.
So let's pretend that you are the caregiver and you need to get her to stand up. What would you do?
I'd want to be really close by and say, okay, we're going to stand up and gently bring in my
Okay,
hands.
let me just stop right there for a minute, and then I'm not picking on you. But what I get in reports about sexually inappropriate, remember the vision? And remember, think she's a guy. Remember that vision, what she's gonna see? Yeah. So, rather than that, this is called a confrontational stance, understandably. Come alongside and get down at eye level with her. I have bad knees, so I can't.
But I want to still be in
Right.
eye to eye.
Yeah. So what? I will tell you how I cheat when I'm at work and I have to do this. I bring a chair alongside her. And then we can talk and we can build a rapport. And then it gets to the point where I can actually put my hand on her and I don't feel any flinching. She's starting to trust me. And then what I can do is hold her hand. This is hand in her hand, and it works magic in a lot of ways. And then together, we stand up and we go off wherever we need to go. That make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna do one last thing.
So another thing with that whole spatial, like I worked at summer camps with kids that
Yeah.
we kind of do the same exercise where we start out and then one line walks to the other until you get, so everybody's comfort level, right, that safety space is different, but to complicate that, it depends on the mood you're in too.
Yes.
So that may be a safety, like here is okay one day, but if
Yeah.
you're not in a good mood,
Good
that
point.
may be 12 feet off.
Very
Yeah.
good point, very
And
good
don't be
point.
the person, the caregiver in the corner, getting
Yeah.
locked in.
Yeah, again, that's all part of that when you're going and you wanna map it out for yourself. All right, we're gonna have one more fun thing. I want you to, and not really prepared to do it this way, but we're gonna, each of you grab a chair and sit down next to, partner up, if that's what I'm saying.
With each other?
Yeah, with you
You
six.
need 6 chairs or 2 chairs?
Well, there's 2 of them here, but I need 4 more.
Chair behind.
What's that?
Can we take that chair behind?
Yeah, you
Is that
can.
all right?
Yep.
Thanks, Liz.
4, 5.
And go ahead and have a seat. You guys can have a seat. Yeah. That's what happens when you have a bunch of circle parks. Feel like we're all crowding in on you?
Yes.
Well, we brought you in today. What did I do now?
All right, I want to keep the same Alzheimer's patients.
So that's us.
Yeah. So you guys need to swap out. So you 2 need to swap out because I need a caregiver with a, yeah.
I had Alzheimer's too.
Okay, so I'm caregiver.
Oh, I see. Gotcha.
Okay. First step, I want the caregiver to give the Alzheimer's patient a drink.
Let's have some water.
Right, right.
Bringing it in.
Okay, you made that very easy.
You're gonna have to feed it to her.
We have built a good rapport over the time we're living together. That's right.
You're gonna have to let her make her drink.
Oh, please no.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You're right.
Try this, just take a little sip of
We're-
water.
we-
Yep, yep. Yeah, look at that. Oh, my goodness. I'm gonna be the one wearing it. Okay. Everybody's looking at me.
This is a great example.
Did you guys all get a drink?
Fantastic.
Give a drink?
All right.
Can I'm
Oh, yeah. Oh, I know.
Maybe not thirsty right now? Well,
Okay.
it's okay.
Okay. I got a lesson for that. And did you get a drink?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna have you step up just for a minute. 'Cause I wanna show,
Okay.
gonna show you something. Okay, remember that hand under hand? You grab hold of the water, but she has a hold of you. And then she brings it up.
It's like the tip of snow.
Yeah.
And then when she's had enough, or like when she doesn't want any at all, you feel her hand pushing back. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, and she does
Alright.
keep it
It
as
feels
like
more
her hand
comfortable,
too.
too.
It does, and it works with
Forks.
food,
Yep.
yeah, with a fork. So when they've had enough, they just pull it back.
Brushing teeth too.
Brushing teeth too. And that hand in the hand is good with dressing too. Remember how you have to pull everything? If you have your hand in theirs, you can just pull the sleeve down over your hand. Go to Tipa Snow.
Sure.
That's all I'm gonna say. She'll show you all that.
That's a resource.
Okay,
There.
folks, you can go back to your own chairs and we're gonna finish up. Bring them back only if you need them.
I can scoot this way.
Okay. In the last minutes, I'm going to ask you all to close your eyes and just listen to the words that I tell you. Here are questions to ask yourself to help you understand why someone with dementia might develop behavioral symptoms. How would you react if your family took your car keys away and told you that you couldn't drive anymore for any reason? How would you react if people told you it was daytime when you knew for a fact that it was the middle of the night? How would you respond if someone told you strangers would be coming to your house where you had lived alone for decades to take care of you because you couldn't take care of yourself? How would you react if someone kidnapped you from your home and took you to a place full of sick and crazy people? What would you do if the people in the place ordered you to sit down when you wanted to stand up, or made you stand up when you wanted to sit down? How would you react if you wanted to drink and were told you had to wait? How would you respond if you loved peace and quiet and were now surrounded by loud noises and strangers who shouted, groaned, and talked nonsense all the time? How would you react if people less than a quarter your age talked to you like you were a 2-year-old? What would you do if you wanted to escape but all the doors were locked and you didn't have a key? What would you do if you weren't allowed out, ever? How would you react if someone tried to force feed you? What would you do if someone made you swallow pills you knew would put you to sleep when you wanted to be awake? How would you respond if someone told you that you weren't allowed to go into your room, or open a door, or close a drawer, or pick someone up, or put something down, or go outside, or go inside, or do whatever you wanted? What would you do if you were trapped and cried for help and someone put you in a chair you couldn't get out of and said you had to stay there? What if a stranger wanted to come to the bathroom with you? What if he tried to undress you? What if he put his hands between your legs and under your arms and under your breasts? What if you said you didn't want to have a bath, but people took your clothes off anyway, and then they forced you into the bath and told you to calm down and be quiet? What if things like this happened every day? How would you feel? All right. Anybody have any questions?
So how do you, 'cause we see that a lot as case management, when you've got someone with dementia that is unsafe by themselves, that is refusing that in-home care. Like, how do you navigate that to make them more okay
That,
with that?
and that comes with trust, and I know as a case manager that's very difficult, but it comes by building a trust so that they believe what you're saying, because in their mind, they can take care of everything themselves.
Can I comment
Yeah,
on that? So
yeah.
I had a family, the same issue, I've had a couple. And what I asked the family to do is take it on to be about you. And so let them know, say I'm the daughter, that I have a friend who's really in need of a job. She can't take care of her kids, but she's a great housekeeper. Do you mind if she comes in and helps? And we'll just give her money because she really, really needs the help. You make it about you, not about mom's needs, but then mom feels more purposeful that she's giving someone
That's a good idea.
job, giving somebody an opportunity, and it kind of reaches her in that space. And if they live with their kids, that makes it even easier, like, it is my kid, it is my friend, you know?
Yeah.
But that's,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
have the family come the first couple times and do that same kind of dialogue, and then the
That's-
trust gets built.
Yeah, that sounds great. My wheelhouse isn't on that side. I get them when they come to me and they're already scared and they're already trying to build a new rhythm to their life. So I can appreciate that's a great idea.
Well, and I was thinking about the bathing, because that's like another huge issue. And
It is.
So I went home thinking about that one night. I'm like, when you really think about this, if you're confused and disorientated
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah,
being in the shower is super
Yeah.
vulnerable.
And
And so now you're being asked to sit there in that confusion
Yeah.
with no way to defend yourself. Why
And-
would they get at you?
yeah, it is a very vulnerable place. And we deal with that when they first come to us too. And what I do is baby steps. You know, maybe we don't take them in the shower at first. Maybe it's just a bed bath and they can keep their underwear on and we can just wash around. You know, as long as it's not a health risk,
Would
just,
there be anything wrong with having them wear a swimsuit?
no,
You have to
I
wear a
had one that
swimsuit?
did.
Do you
Yeah,
always have to rinse off before you go into the public pool?
yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
So I work in long-term care, and I'm a social worker, so I don't usually give baths, but I do give baths when there's
Yeah.
significant behaviors. And I find finding out what kind of music the person loves, music
Yeah.
is such a powerful tool.
yeah,
And the other thing, there's one veteran, and he's really challenging, and I was trying to get him in the bath, I had the music on, we're having like a dance party practically, and I had a hard time getting him to sit down, but when I put a towel around his private area,
Yeah.
then I was able to get his pants off,
Yeah.
underwear, and that was the game changer. So I also found in CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, about 10 years ago, did, and it was free for every single nursing home, bathing without a battle.
oh,
It
that's
has some
awesome. Yeah, I've
tips.
seen that.
And one of the tips, again, is, you know, that private area.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've given a bath and the woman keeps her bra on, and that's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
You know, so, but CMS, Bathing Without a Battle, is online.
Yeah, it is.
Has some pretty good tips.
Yeah, and I did the same thing. I had them wear a bathing suit and she was fine with it, yeah.
And there's just that temperature sensitivity too.
Yeah,
like-
there's that too.
Yeah.
So if you have the handheld, that
That's
works
the
better,
best, yeah.
because then they can actually feel it and they'll go, okay, yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
Not rushing.
About 10 years ago, I wrote a book, little small book, which you have over here, First Come, First Serve, where I kept getting the same question, I'm sure you guys do too, get the same questions over and over again, one family after another. So I sat down and wrote a roadmap for them from the time that they get the diagnosis to the end of life, and put it all into that book form. So you've got that. And then I also have over here, how many of you are familiar with the Abbey scale? So in particular in hospitals, but even at home, pain gets underdiagnosed. And using this Abbey scale has been a life changer for us. We've been able to assess pain a lot more effectively using that. And we also have, you guys may have already seen these too, a caregiver self-assessment questionnaire. And it's not even intimidating. You just hand this to them and they do the work themselves, and then the score, let me just read it so you understand. After they answer the questions, it says, if you answer over 10 in a certain way, and as a yes, then chances are you're experiencing a high degree of distress. And then it gives you next steps of what you can do next, and it gives you some national resources to go with that. So when you got that caregiver that's burnt out, and I've done this before with others, and handed it to them, said, just fill it out yourself. I'm not going to ask you any questions. I'm not going to say anything to you about it. Just read it yourself and find out for yourself. And sure enough, one of them did, and she ended up going, getting some respite help for herself because it helped that much. Yeah.
I love a copy of what you read to us, Imagine, Close Your Eyes.
Oh.
I thought that was just really terrific. It would be great for staff on just, you know, taking a moment in
Okay.
empathy.
I'll send a copy to Ed, and then he can pass it out to whoever needs it. Okay? Or if you want me to, actually, I've got a checklist there for people that want to stay in touch with me. You can put your email address there, and I'll do it that way. Okay. And the last one is what to do when your loved one is angry. And it gives a whole slew of possibilities of why they're angry. All right. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.